And I hung up right away. And I'll never forget the feeling I had where it's almost like you can't breathe. And I'm the owner of Premium Finance Brokerage. PFB is the largest privately held aggregator of insurance premium financing in the country. I started PFB in 2005 after I had spent many years working for someone else. When I was working for another company, they decided to sell to a bank in Texas. And when that happened, it gave me an opportunity to go out on my own and start this. When I first got started back in 2005, shortly after I got my feet underneath of me, I had a massive fraud where an insurance agent stole money from the bank. And how they did that and the scheme that they perpetrated on this bank is really a small, I'd call it almost a miniature version of what Bernie Madoff did. This client happened to be a friend of mine. I'd known him for years. And it really affected me personally because I'm convinced today that he either was bipolar or he had multiple personality disorder. Today, we are 15 employees strong. We do business all over the country. And basically what we do is we help businesses borrow money to pay for their insurance. Now, it's not the type of insurance that you buy for like your home or your car or what we would call a standard Main Street type business like a printer or a copy center or something you would see in a strip shopping center. The type of business that we do is mostly businesses that are considered high risk. They'd be businesses like taverns, nightclubs, people that do asbestos abatement, bridge painters, window cleaners. These are what the insurance industry considers to be high risk industries. So those businesses will buy their insurance in what's called the excess and surplus lines market. A lot of those insurance companies you'll have never heard of. They're companies like Lloyd's of London, Evanston, Essex, Alpine. They're not like State Farm and Allstate and Nationwide. These are companies that specialize in working with high-risk industries. But this person I had known for a long time. He had worked for a larger insurance agency and then went off on his own, started his own agency, and I partnered with him, did all his financing for him. And what he was doing was he would actually manufacture business that wasn't real. A lot of those companies don't offer a payment plan. So like when you pay your automobile insurance, you probably pay it every month. You might pay it every quarter. The company might swipe it from your account every month or every quarter or every 6 months. These insurance companies want their money up front. So what we do is we come in and we provide them a loan. We don't lend the money. We originate the loan, much like what a mortgage broker would do if you were buying a house. But in his case, he was using the money for houses, cars, drugs, women. So we originate the loan. It then gets serviced by a lender, a bank. Banks like Truist, Wintrust. These are the types of banks, Valley National Bank in New Jersey. These banks have lending arms that specialize in this kind of business. And we work with those, we partner with those firms to help place this business. It's a very, very competitive but very lucrative business. This is it's hard to believe I'm saying this is my 25th year doing this and my 17th year of doing it as an independent broker, if you will. What he did was he would play a role as not only the insurance agent, but he would play a role as a representative from an insurance company. And he would play a role as a representative of the purchaser of insurance. So, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, when we caught him, I happened to go to his office, and he'd sit in this big conference room with a desk about 3 times the size of this desk, and on that desk he'd have all these files. There had to be 40 cell phones on his desk. So when the bank would call to do an inspection, which was very routine, where they would call the insurance company, they'd verify the policies were in place, they'd verify the coverage types, premiums, all that good stuff. He was acting as a representative of the carrier when he really wasn't. The industry is very competitive. What makes it competitive for us is we are not a direct lender. So what we have to do is we have to carve out a niche where you're not working directly for the bank when you work with us. So we represent these banks, but we don't work for these banks directly. So for us, we have to really be hands-on, customer-oriented, provide a very high level of service, and we try to do it in a way where we really help micromanage these accounts and work with these clients, where we become an advocate for them. So we really feel as independent marketing people that we are confidants for the client. We try to provide our expertise to them, educating them on some of the do's and don'ts. But we really try to service them in a way that they would not get serviced directly by the lender. That's all I got. So when he would give the bank the number to call to do a verification, well, guess who he was calling? They were calling him. And he would just disguise his voice. And it was the most convoluted scheme I've ever seen in my 35 years in being connected to this industry. So when I arrived in his office, and of course you see all these phones, you see all these files, what happened was, on probably 3/4 of his loans, he was one of those people in the process, at least. But he had it all figured out on how these banks verify and how the banks cross-reference and what the premium thresholds were. The only reason we caught him is it was early morning, probably around 7 o'clock. I happened to be in a town where there was a trade show, and I got a call from this gentleman, And he's like, look, man, I'm desperate. I need to get this account processed today. So I'm unsuspecting. I've got no idea. We have no idea what's going on. So I call the bank. I ask the bank where we are in the process. And the processor tells me, well, I called the agent back and I said, hey, I need to get a contact at the business, which happened to be my name, Stewart Title. Well, Stewart, but Stewart Title was the name of the client. So he gives me the name and he says, call that person right away. So I get the name, I get the phone number, I give it back to the processor. She tries to reach that person, she can't. She gets a voicemail. So I get a call back from her and she says, you know, something's weird. She said, I called that number you gave me, but the person's voice sounds like the agent's voice. And I'm like, nah, that just can't be. So I called. I blocked my number. And I called the number he gave me. I'll never forget this. The gentleman's name was Jim Owens. I called the number, blocked my number so he can't see my caller, my phone number. And he picks up the call. And it's him. And I hung up right away. And I'll never forget the feeling I had where it's almost like you can't breathe. It's almost like you just can't believe that this is your friend on the other end who's literally playing the part of a person who works for an insured, a fictitious insured of his. Now this business was actually a legitimate business, but they had no idea that there were insurance policies taken on their behalf from this insurance agent. But that sinking feeling, I will never forget as long as I live. I drove over there. I immediately dropped what I was doing, left that trade show, drove to that gentleman's office. And I sat in his office waiting for him to come out. I'm in the parking lot. He never comes out. I waited there for probably 2 hours. So I decided to go in. And that's when I found the conference table with all the phones. And of course, I confronted him. And I'm like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And by the time we had unraveled it, it was about a $4.5 million loss. So what happens is the bank starts underwriting all the loans, and you see all these loans are fictitious, fraudulent, and you're just trying to get your arms around the extent of the loss. And when it was all said and done, it was a multi-million-dollar loss. He went to jail. And as I said before, when you're in business or when you're in life and you befriend someone and you genuinely think that person is your friend, it really has an impact on how you do business with people when someone like that jeopardizes your trust. And that's an incident in my 35 years in business, in working, that I'll never forget. And I've recovered from it because it certainly hurt me. I mean, these loans were fraudulent, so they charge you back. Whatever commission I made from those deals got charged back to me. So it hurt me personally and financially. But you got to be very careful who you do business with. And that's why it's so important to vet people. You do everything you can to make sure that these people share the same values as you. But that's one that I'll never forget as long as I live, especially knowing that I was just starting out. I was only probably at that point 2 years on my own. And I'm trying to feed my family with 2 young boys and a wife at home that's not working. So that was a great lesson in business for me. It was a great lesson in life. And who do you trust? But I think it's important that you have to go on, you have to recover from it, and most people are good people. You don't have a lot of Bernie Madoffs, but I look back on that whole situation, and it was truly a story that could have ended up on American Greed, the TV show. But that's some of the risks you have in this business. The insurance company that can go into receivership or lose their liquidity, or they call it surplus, or your insurance agent. Your insurance agent, you've got to make sure you trust. Your carrier, you've got to make sure you trust. Because if it goes down and you don't have any insurance, or you bought a policy and the insurance was never, the funds were never sent to the carrier, then you really don't have insurance. You really don't have a policy. So if you were to have a claim, that claim may not be covered.